What's going on, guys? What's happening? Welcome to Party on Broad. Party on Broad can be found on iTunes and Spotify. Hit that subscribe button, guys. If you guys are here at the Painted Lines YouTube channel, joining us today is our co-host. He is Rob. Follow him on Twitter at Philly_Madness. What's up, Rob?
Not much, man. Sorry I missed you guys yesterday with the defensive ranks, but man, you got me inside of you somehow and went negative, huh? You were pretty negative there yesterday.
I certainly channeled my inner Rob, and I try and stay even keel. Unless we're talking about Norvell Pell, I like to think of myself as like middle ground, and it just didn't happen. And I don't know what happened, man.
Well, it's funny because I was hoping to have been able to do this. So I had started looking at things, and I was like, all right, I like the defensive line, but the linebackers are god-awful, and there's about 1,050 questions in the defensive backfield. Yeah, I don't like it. Like that was kind of the way I looked at it. And I was like, damn, I thought I was going to be a little more positive on the defensive end because of the moves that they made. And granted, I think with their defense, it's the front four are going to be the key. If they can get pressure with the front four, everything else falls into place. But, that's as much of a crapshoot as everything they've done this offseason. So who knows?
Yeah, like you said, I'm very optimistic about the defense. I think there are definitely major strengths there. If they can get consistent four-man rush with all those defensive tackles there, but they have to stay healthy. And if Slay is as good as they say, I'm just channeling my inner Dr. Seuss here, they're going to be good. I think the defense is going to be good. But when you break it down position by position, I was like, damn, like what? It just didn't make sense. Whatever. All right. Anyway, on tap for today, we have the legend, Sheil Kapadia joining us today. We're going to talk everything Eagles draft and how it projects into 2020. Man, it was a great interview. Any quick thoughts on the interview, dude?
Well, one of the big things I wanted to know was, what is the Eagles' end game right now? Like where with Jalen Hurts, with so many different things. And, I didn't – I'm going to tease it. What Sheil had to say had us both shaking our head a little bit. I'm really hoping that his initial end game is not what actually happens because I would be disappointed.
And to piggyback a little bit off of that, I've been very critical of this year's Eagles draft. And there's a lot of hype about these day 3 guys. And I think Sheil Kapadia just runs with that. So we're going to run our credits and start with the interview. Thanks, guys.
Sixers win it! Wow! Oh, man, Embiid just posterized Russell Westbrook. You love the Philadelphia Eagles! Let me get a hell yeah!
All right, guys, joining the show today is one of the best writers around. My man covers the NFL for The Athletic. Please be sure to check out Birds with Friends, an amazing podcast that covers the Philadelphia Eagles. You can find that pod anywhere you find your podcast or at theathletic.com. If you aren't already, give my man a follow on Twitter at Sheil Kapadia. How you doing, man?
Good. How you guys doing?
We're hanging
Thanks
in
for
there.
having me.
It's an honor, man. You are one of my favorite writers of all time. Thank you for joining, my man.
I appreciate that. Thanks a lot. And as I told you before, sorry I don't have like the Adam Schefter background. It's just like some unused exercise equipment and a basement wall. So hopefully your viewers don't fall asleep here. We'll try to keep them entertained.
Let's do it. So let's start off. We're talking NFL draft, the Eagles draft. And before we start talking about each prospect, man, there's a lot of talk about how analytics drove the Eagles draft. What is your take on how the Eagles went about approaching this year's draft?
I think that's true to a degree. If you look at it, the big thing is just really athletic prospects. I mean, there's various metrics that you can look at that kind of shoot out athletic scores based on 40 times and broad jump and all these different types of things. And for a while there, it was kind of hit or miss. Some prospects were really athletic in that testing. Others were not. But this year, that really stood out to me. When you look at sort of all the scores of all the guys they chose, there was this huge focus on athleticism. And, generally, if you're giving me two evenly matched prospects. I want the more athletic one, but just drafting an athletic player, as you guys know, does not mean it's going to translate to the field and that the pick's going to be a home run. So it was certainly an interesting shift, and we'll see how it works out.
And Sheil, one of the picks that has been highly debated was Justin Jefferson, Jalen Reagor. You know, which way are the Eagles going to go? Which way should they go? I was a Justin Jefferson guy. Chris had been pounding the table for Jalen Reagor for months, and I kept trying to tell him, talk me into this guy. It didn't work because the night of the draft I was a little bit dejected. But you've seen both guys. What have you seen that stood out from Jalen Reagor, and how do you see him being implemented hopefully right away for this Eagles offense?
Yeah, I really liked Reagor. You know, when I was going, I went through like 20 receivers before the draft because you knew the Eagles were going to come away with multiple guys. So I wanted to form an opinion. And what was really hard about comparing guys to Justin Jefferson is for every receiver I watched, I tried to ask myself, if this guy was playing with Joe Burrow in that LSU offense, what kind of numbers would he have put up? And really with Jalen Reagor, you know, I was looking at him with that TCU offense, that poor TCU quarterback who's just getting crushed left and right in Philadelphia. But really, if, you know, I could easily see Reagor, if he played for LSU last year, having, you know, 1,000, 1,100, 1,200 yards. I just liked a lot about him. I think his route running is really good. I think his, you know, he's got that vertical speed where he can play on the outside. He can separate. He can make some really highlight level catches. So he really is a complete player. Now, you never know. It's a crapshoot. We see every year. We sell ourselves on these receivers in the first round, and then all of a sudden someone pops up in the second, third, fourth, fifth round who we didn't see coming. So I don't want to speak with an overconfidence where I know he's going to be, you know, a home run next year. But just speaking honestly, even before the draft, I had Reagor ranked ahead of Jefferson for the Eagles just because I thought Jefferson, his biggest strength is as a slot receiver. So I thought he was outstanding working that middle intermediate part of the field. I think he'll be great for the Vikings. But when you look at the Eagles, I mean, you've got two guys in Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert who really do a good job in that area of the field. I thought you needed more help on the outside. So we'll see how it goes. I know we'll be comparing those two for a long time to come for sure.
Amen. That's yes. And that's what I've been saying for months and months and months about my man, Jalen Reagor, is that if there's one key thing, besides speed, is that the Eagles love versatility, and Jalen Reagor's ability to play outside, to play slot, that's everything. And Justin Jefferson just didn't do that for me. So let's talk a little bit about the wide receiver position, man. It's now stacked. It's essentially a bunch of track stars. Projecting into 2020, the depth chart, how do you see the wide receiver position playing out for next year?
Well, I would view it more as kind of cautious optimism, to be quite honest. You know, really, if you look at it, like they're really only going to have one new starter on offense, and that's Jalen Reagor. And so you added a bunch of these guys. Marquise Goodwin, I mean, he's had one good year in 7 seasons. You look at the day 3 picks, and everyone gets really excited about them. Those guys can fly. There's no doubt about it. But if you just kind of look at the history, wide receivers drafted in the 3rd round, I mean, the history is not good. They're really like lottery tickets. Now, if you hit, it's great. You've got a starter or a rotational player on a rookie contract. That's a huge advantage. But just the fact of the matter, like I looked up all day 3 wide receivers over the last, I think it was 5 or 10 years. And on average, they have like 9 catches as in their rookie season. So, I mean, a lot of them don't even make the team. So, you know, I think the Eagles, what they're doing is they're sort of taking a lot of swings, and they're saying if we can get like 2 things to work out of Deshaun Jackson staying healthy, Arcega-Whiteside making a 2nd-year leap, Jalen Reagor being really good as a rookie, maybe Marquise Goodwin has one more good year in him, maybe one of these day 3 wide receivers plays well. So all those things are not going to happen. If you can get like 2 of those things to happen, you're in good shape. If 2 of those things don't happen, honestly, you know, we could be sitting here next year saying they need to address the wide receiver position again. That's why I was really, I really thought they should have made an aggressive play for somebody like DeAndre Hopkins or another wide receiver where you say, you know what, you're paying up a little bit, but you know what you're getting with this guy. He's going to contribute right away. He's going to change the whole sort of shape of your offense. They went the other route, which is probably, you know, you're not giving up draft picks, you're paying less, but it does add some risk to it as well.
Amen.
Well, you know, and one of the things they didn't do that a lot of people are still a little upset with is they didn't trade up in that 1st round as CeeDee Lamb started to drop. And part of that was they didn't want to give away a second-round pick because, as Howie has told us, that second-round pick is so vital, and there's going to be so many players that we're going to go out and draft the backup quarterback to Carson Wentz and create a controversy like Philadelphia loves to have. What was your reaction when Jalen Hurts is selected by the Eagles? And do you see him having any sort of impact here in 2020? Or should I say, is it a good thing if Jalen Hurts has to have an impact in 2020?
It's probably not a good thing, but they, I guess, did prepare for that situation. I mean, I was stunned by the pick. At the time, I thought it was a terrible pick. Days later, I thought about it, talked to people, and I get their reasoning. I still don't think it was a good pick. I would not have made that move. But I think like the bottom line that we have to look at, this wasn't about finding a backup. This wasn't about finding someone who can be, Taysom Hill 2.0. I think they looked at Jalen Hurts and said, this guy has a really high ceiling. And if we can build, I don't know if it's a Ravens type offense like with Lamar Jackson, but they're saying if that's the new wave of the NFL, we think this guy's accurate enough. We think he's got great leadership skills, and we know he can run, that we don't want to give up on him, and use that pick elsewhere right now. So I think that's the bottom line with this pick. Now, you brought up a good point. I mean, how are you going to find that out? The only way you find that out is if Carson Wentz doesn't play. So if Carson Wentz gets injured and Jalen Hurts comes in, I've heard the argument that, hey, they solved their backup quarterback situation. I mean, you don't really know that. We don't know what is Jalen Hurts going to be in year one as a backup quarterback. Is he going to be better than a mediocre backup quarterback who you could assign for, say, $3 million? I mean, maybe he will be. That would be a great outcome, but there's a chance, a pretty good chance, actually, that he might not be. And then, at that point, what did you really use that pick for? So like you said, I mean, this is going to be just such a heavily discussed topic in Philadelphia. I guess it's good for people like me who have to write about it and talk about it. But I thought it was a surprising pick. It, given all the holes on the roster, corner, safety, linebacker, defensive line, offensive line depth, another wide receiver, there were a lot of other areas you could have gone with for that pick. Or like I mentioned earlier, you could have, like you guys mentioned, you could have thrown it in there with a trade for somebody else. So we will see how it goes.
I'm terrified, man. I'm a big Carson Wentz guy, and I'm terrified the second that Jalen Hurts comes off the field, that first preseason game, goes 10 for 12, 150 yards, 2 scores. It's just knowing this town, man, there's no more divisive city in all of sports than Philadelphia, man. I'm just getting over the Carson Wentz versus Nick Foles, all that shit, man. I'm just, it's going to be back. It's coming back. But sticking to Jalen Hurts, you touched on it a little bit with Lamar Jackson. Do you think we could see a shift in scheme for the Eagles on offense next year?
No, I think you will see a shift, but I don't think it'll be in that way with Carson Wentz. I don't think they're going to get him involved in the run game. I think a big shift you might see is, they hired this guy, Rich Scangarello, who was the Denver Broncos offensive coordinator, who kind of came up under Kyle Shanahan, and kind of his specialty is the play action and the bootlegs and the getting the quarterback on the move outside the pocket. And if you look at it last year, the end of the year, the last 4 games when they started playing better, they were doing a lot more of that. And I think that really plays well to Carson Wentz's strength. So I think you're going to see a lot more of him getting outside the pocket, those sort of designed quarterback movement plays. But I don't think they'll get him involved a lot in the run game. Now, if Wentz goes down and you say, hey, Hurts is going to play for the next 3 to 4 weeks, that's when you could really be seeing like this dramatic shift in the offense, which again, that's not hard to do. That is hard to do, to just sort of implement that on the fly and sort of change your offense. But that's kind of what you would have to do if Hurts was going to come in as a rookie and have to play.
Yeah.
I know that Carson spoke today briefly before the technical difficulties that were taking place there. And as always, he said all the right things. He said he's not concerned. He trusts Howie, trusts the organization, all those things. But I'm curious what you would say is the best case scenario. Is the best case scenario Carson plays every season for the next 2 to 3 years while Jalen Hurts develops, and you're able to ship him off for a couple picks down the road or for a position of need? What is the – I think what we're all struggling with is what is the end game that the Eagles won out of this?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. That was actually my question to Howie Roseman after the pick was, what's the best case scenario with a pick like this? Because it's hard to see which path are you trying to go down where you say, all right, this was a successful pick. I mean, the scenario you pointed out, let's say that Wentz plays and you try to trade Jalen Hurts. I mean, what are the odds that you're going to get better than the 53rd overall pick for a guy who, hasn't played? No one's going to give you a first-round pick for a guy like that. So, I mean, really, people probably wouldn't want to hear this, but the best-case scenario would be that Jalen Hurts has to play, and he looks like Russell Wilson, and you have a quarterback on a rookie contract who is giving you, whatever, top 10 level quarterback play. And again, people are not going to want to hear this, but then you trade Carson Wentz, and he is a very valuable asset, and you're getting at least a first-round pick for him. Maybe you're getting more than that. You can build around Jalen Hurts, and he becomes your quarterback of the future. I mean, that, if you're asking what's the best-case scenario of all the ones involved, that's it. And so I think the Eagles looked at that option. And then the other one is that Carson Wentz stays healthy. He plays like he played in 2017. You have an MVP caliber quarterback. You're probably going to be in the Super Bowl mix. And then Hurts is developing just as a good backup. You're probably not trading him at that point because the value you're getting in a trade is probably not as good as what he means to you as a backup. So those are the two winning scenarios, I would say.
All right. It's just tragic, man. As a Carson Wentz guy, it's brutal, man. All right, let's talk about let's go to the other side of the field. Let's talk about Davion Taylor. Because as someone who loves the Birds, I have been very critical of this draft. And more specifically, guys that make an impact in 2020. I want to kind of pick your brain a little bit about Davion Taylor. Super raw, super fast prospect. What stood out to you about this guy, and what do you expect out of him in 2020?
Yeah, I think it's what you said. I mean, it's his athleticism. I mean, the guy is a great athlete, specifically at the linebacker position, but raw is the right word. I mean, a lot of people might look at him and say, even if he reaches his ceiling, he's not a 3-down linebacker, because he's not like a, stacked linebacker who's going to play the run really well and take, get off the blocks of guards and make tackles that way. He really is sort of a space player, which is, that's the way the league is going, is you want linebackers who can cover, who can run, do all those different types of things. So best case scenario for him as a rookie is he's probably, sort of a nickel linebacker where he's coming in on passing situations and maybe can give you quality play there. But that is the best case scenario. I mean, there's, like you mentioned, there's a scenario where he doesn't do much at all in 2020, is a special teams player, take some time, and you figure out kind of how to get him in the mix in 2021.
Another position of need for the Eagles, in my opinion, one of their biggest ones was safety. Kind of hoped at 53 they went Jeremy Chin. I was kind of getting excited as he was sitting on the board. They still end up with a pretty good one in Kayvon Wallace out of Clemson. He seems to be that versatile type of safety that Jim Schwartz likes, and kind of plays that Malcolm Jenkins role, right, where he could come up, play in the slot, play safety, maybe a little bit of linebacker. Do you see him maybe making a bigger impact than some might be suspecting this season?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you nailed it. I think other than Reagor, he's probably the rookie most likely to have an impact in 2020. It's exactly what you said. I was watching him against LSU in that playoff game, and he was actually lined up with Justin Jefferson a lot in the slot. He won some battles, he lost some battles, but he didn't look overmatched in that type of matchup where you're using him as sort of a slot cornerback. So he's got that skill set. He's a very good tackler. He can do a lot of different things. And as you mentioned, they don't really have an answer at safety. I mean, maybe Jalen Mills moves over there and gets some reps there. I don't know if that's going to be the case. Maybe a guy like Will Parks, who they signed as a free agent, maybe he sees some reps there. But I think there's an opening there to play as a starting safety next to Rodney McLeod. And, Wallace seems like the kind of guy who coaches will like right away, sort of the leadership, the intangibles, how hard he plays. So I think he's got a real opportunity if he can make an impression whenever they get to training camp and whenever they start practicing.
Awesome. All right, last question, man. Are there any day 3 guys Howie Roseman drafted that you like the most or have the best chance of making an instant impact in 2020?
That's a good question. Other than Kayvon Wallace, I think it's, I think he's definitely the obvious answer, but I just mentioned him. I mean, maybe one of these wide receivers you straight gold with. I don't know. I didn't see that from them, John Hightower and Quez Watkins, but you just look at it and there's an opening there. I mean, Deshaun Jackson is 33 years old and coming off a season in which he played 3 games last year. JJ Arcega-Whiteside certainly didn't do anything last year that would have you get your hopes up. So those guys can certainly run. It doesn't have to be somebody who's coming in and catching 60 balls. Can it be a starting caliber wide receiver to play kind of that Torrey Smith role from the Super Bowl season where he's not putting up crazy numbers, but he's doing what he's supposed to. He's stretching the defense. You at least have to account for his speed a little bit, and he's helping you maybe more than the numbers show. So maybe Hightower or Watkins, maybe one of those guys can fill that role.
Love it.
Can I get one more question at you? I have just a quick question for you. We went into this offseason with a lot of what ifs on this roster, and we thought that this was going to be a really big offseason and draft for Howie Roseman. And I feel like as this thing, I know that there's still time to sign players and whatnot, but there still seems like there's a ton of what ifs from our perspective. So I asked this: say they're an average team this year. They're 8-8. Maybe Carson gets hurt and Jalen just isn't great. Is there any time this year where you could say that Howie Roseman, with the moves he made this offseason, puts himself on the hot seat?
It's tough for me to say. I mean, certainly he could come under some intense criticism and, would be open to questioning. I mean, I'm kind of with you guys. I have not loved their offseason. I've been pretty critical of a lot of the moves, but you kind of look at Howie Roseman, and he's been there a long time, and he's outlasted a lot of other people in the building. He did just build a Super Bowl roster 2 years ago, and I mean, this is somebody who was moved out of the football side of the operation and then came back and has control of the 53-man roster. So he's lasted a long time. Where it's tough to meet, barring something where they go 4-12, 5-11, 6-10, and there's just chaos all over the place. And even in that situation, I'm not sure Jeffrey Lurie would look at it and say Howie Roseman's to blame. I mean, he might look at it and say Doug Peterson didn't do a good enough job or somebody else. So, I haven't seen anything that suggests to me that Jeffrey Lurie would kind of question that, but I don't think it's an unfair question from you either, where, they've been a mediocre team since that Super Bowl win. And this was a big offseason where they took a lot of big swings. And if those don't come through, then I think it's natural to sort of question the moves that the general manager made.
Awesome. All right. That is Sheil Kapadia. Make sure you check out Birds with Friends at theathletic.com. Anywhere you find your podcast, follow my man Sheil on Twitter at Sheil Kapadia. Dude, it's been an honor. Thank you so much for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me, guys. Take care. Appreciate it.
You too, dude.
Nice.
Take it easy.
Sixers win it! Wow! Oh, man, and being just posterized Russell Westbrook. You love the Philadelphia